When will I say, choose me? I know if you've been Catholic very long, you're probably tired of hearing about vocations. Vocation, vocation, vocation. You have one. You're made for something. Jesus is calling you intimately and personally by name. You have a mission that only you can accomplish. Your happiness depends on your answer. You've heard it over and over and over. And sometimes it can feel like just one more thing that Catholics need to feel guilty about, especially if we don't know the answer to the question, what is my vocation, or if I struggle to find that answer. Yet our vocations are not meant to be experienced in this way. Jesus didn't create us to test us. He didn't create us to hire us. Of course, he needs fishers of men, but he doesn't need us. He chooses to need us for our sake, not for his. And your vocation will never be a means to his ends, and he will never call you in order to control or use you. Now, quite the opposite. Jesus created you because he wanted to love you. He created you because he wanted to suffer for you and to reveal all the love that he has in his heart for you. And that's why vocation is not first to surrender to God's will. It's first to surrender to his love. That's what the three guys in tonight's scriptures found out. It's grace first, the invasion of grace, and then the call comes. Jesus first invades our space with his mercy. He gets into our boat, and only after that does he call. Isaiah got the hell scared out of him, literally, when he received a vision. He was sure that his unworthiness meant that he was going to be destroyed by the will of God. Instead, an ember came from the angel and touched his lips and cleansed him. An ember not unlike the flesh of Jesus from his burning heart that was going to hit your lips in the Eucharist. From this experience of mercy, Isaiah says, choose me. You know, Paul, in the second reading, he hated Jesus more than anyone. He's the last person Jesus should have called. Yet because Jesus wants to dump all of his mercy that's in his heart, Paul was the person that Jesus most wanted to choose, the person who most hated him. And it's from his most hateful point, redeemed by Jesus, that Paul says, choose me. Peter called Jesus an idiot. Peter, who alternates between great confessions and putting his foot in his mouth, he reminds Jesus that, Jesus, it's my boat and I know how to fish. And Peter obeys not out of faith, but to prove Jesus wrong and casting the nets and putting out into the deep. And then Jesus turns Peter's world upside down. And then when that happens, Peter gets very scared. And Jesus tells Peter to take courage from his fearful place. And from his most fearful place, Peter says, choose me. Thank God that Peter said, yes, choose me. My life was forever changed through the fulfillment of today's gospel promise that Peter would be catching men. When I was a sophomore at KU, Peter's successor, St. John Paul II, gathered 1 million people in Denver, Colorado for the World Youth Days. Talk about a catch. 1 million people is a much bigger catch, and it's way smellier and messier than the 2 boatloads of fish Peter had to deal with today. Yet it's also more glorious. This catch changed my life forever. Isaiah, then Paul, then Peter, none of them applied for a job. None of them told God when they were ready. They were all first invaded by God's mercy. They responded to their experience of grace at their weakest point, where Jesus revealed all of his love to them. When will I say, choose me? I confess that I get caught too often, not by God's grace, but by my telling Jesus what I'm ready to do for him. Yet this isn't a vocation. It's not a calling, telling Jesus what I want to do for him, what I'm willing to do. A vocation is not me telling God how things go in my boat, and I know that this is as good as it's ever going to get. No, a vocation is born when Jesus invades my boat and says, I love you, when he turns my world upside down, when he says, don't be afraid, there is more. That's a vocation. Your vocation is not matching your skills to God's job board. It's your response when God rocks your world by revealing how much he loves you. Your vocation is like Isaiah, it's like Paul's, it's like Peter's. It's meant to be the greatest of upsets, something that astonishes even you. That's the invasion of grace first, and then a vocation. So in this light, when do I want to say, choose me?